Hello everybody, welcome back once again to another Spliced In Later, where today we are doing our final look into the James Bonds, all the famous James Bonds that have been in preparation for the new James Bond film, No Time to Die. But I say that with a heavy heart. You may notice a lack of oomph in my voice, and that is because the thing that I dreaded would happen has indeed happened. Bit of information for you if you're unfamiliar, if you've just clicked on this vid because of Daniel Craig or the movies or whatever, and you haven't been aware of what I've been doing. Since April, I believe, the new James Bond film for the year, No Time to Die, Daniel Craig's final James Bond film, was the first of all the coronavirus delayed films to be delayed, and it got delayed all the way until November 12th. So I optimistically rather thought I was going to do a countdown to No Time to Die. So spaced out over the next few months, I was doing a look into each James Bond actor that has portrayed 007, a look at their personality, their adventures, the way that they portrayed their personality, with a specific look at a movie from that era. It was a fun countdown. I've had a lot of fun with it. It seems to get more hits on my podcast and my YouTube channel than a lot of other things, because I think there are generally a lot of Bond fans out there, and whether they may not be fans of the entire franchise, everybody has their favorite Bond, everybody has their favorite movie. We started off with Pierce Brosnan, and we looked at his film GoldenEye. We moved on to George Lazenby and his film on Her Majesty's Secret Service, the only film he ever did. Timothy Dalton, we had a look at License to Kill, before jumping all the way back to the beginning for Sean Connery with the film Goldfinger. And not too long ago, we jumped again to Roger Moore, and the best of the Roger Moore films, in my opinion, The Spy Who Loved Me. The ultimate goal was that this month, we were going to look at Daniel Craig. I was going to pick a film from Daniel Craig's repertoire, give the usual look into who he is as a character, as a portrayal by Daniel Craig, the types of adventures that he goes on, how it reflects the world, everything like that. Optimistically hoping that in a couple weeks, No Time to Die would cap off the countdown where I could review that movie for you. Not too long ago, it was delayed again. It has now officially been delayed till April 2021, which is exactly 1 year from its original release date of 2020. Now, I'm not going to focus too much on about it. I will say that it's starting to get a little silly and ridiculous. And I don't want to sound like a child that is just whinging because he doesn't get to see the films that he wants to see. But I will sound a bit like that because there's a little bit of that in me. I'm going to be completely honest and say that a lot of it is me being selfish and a terrible human being. And I accept that, and I have learned to live with that, I suppose. I understand that if a movie is delayed, it's not the end of the world, and we can move on with our lives and just... When a movie comes out, that'll be great. However, we're at a point now where movie theaters have attempted to open to accommodate the new coronavirus restrictions, and they are doing what I believe is what a lot of other areas are doing currently. You go to a football stadium and you watch the football, and everyone has to do coronavirus restrictions there and social distancing and everything like that. Go to the mall, go to play ice hockey. I don't know. I don't get out much. I don't know what people do in the real world, but most of the world is sort of open, not completely for business. In certain places across the world, it's very bad and people are still locked down. Australia itself, while we're doing fantastically well, we do have our isolated pockets all across that need to have more restrictions than others. But it's the announcements from the production companies, the studios, that are saying why they're delaying these films. The official reason for No Time to Die's release delay was they want a worldwide release. They want the whole world to be able to watch this film at the exact same time. Let me tell you, that's not going to happen for quite some time, I think, until we get a vaccine for coronavirus. And this is the most I've talked about coronavirus on this show. It's actually quite surprising, but that's how annoyed and invested I am in what I'm about to say now. It is very unlikely that the whole world is going to be completely on the same level unless a vaccine is found. And as much as scientists everywhere are pushing for this vaccine, and people are putting in tremendous work, trialing, human trials, the steps forward that are taking are very promising. but it does not seem like it is going to be anytime soon. Taking a 2020 movie and putting it in 2021, thinking, cool, 2021 is a different year from 2020, things will be better by then, unlikely. And the fact that it's going to be 100% better. Looking at the world at the moment, can you honestly say that in April 2021, only 5 months from now, this whole pandemic thing is going to be fine for everybody in the whole world? Unlikely. And you can also argue that it's looking out for the people who can't restrict themselves, who might risk going to the movie theaters, however you want to look at it. I disagree. I doubt now that it's a case of public safety and looking out for people. If you say something like a worldwide release, it's very much, we want to make as much money as possible, and we're not going to get it with only some of the cinemas open. So rather than allow some people to see it at some point and other people other ways, we're just not going to release. We're going to hold on to all these movies. And it's frustratingly frustrating at this point. And I say this having just learned this morning that Dune, a very exciting big movie that was going to hit in Christmas, has been delayed 8 to 10 months. October 2021, that one's coming out. It's disheartening. It's very upsetting that this stuff keeps happening because we have progressed to a point where there are options now. You cannot keep delaying movies forever just so everything can be back to normal and then put it. If cinemas survive this pandemic, they will certainly never be the same again, especially not without a vaccine. In the last couple of months, as you saw with some reviews that I put up, we have trialed and attempted different ways of releasing movies, and they have worked for the most part. Mulan got released on Disney+, and from what I hear, lots of money was spent on that premium access to watch Mulan, so it made quite a bit of money there. Tenet got a staggered release, so yeah, the box office might look to not have great immediately on the very first weekend, but as it opened up in certain places across the world where it was available, it's done all right. It's done pretty well. I heard it was a success in China. It's only America that hasn't made as much money as is usual for America, and that's unfortunate, but you know, maybe you need better leadership to get on top of this pandemic and not be led by a madman. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say for that. I'm going to leave it, or this whole episode is going to be talking about how annoyed I am. But at this point, guys, every day I wake up and my usual newsfeed, or that I follow on social media, it's all movie production. And I'm disheartened and annoyed that I keep seeing, get excited for the new Jurassic World Dominion movie coming soon. Here are some secrets from the set. Or we just dropped the teaser trailer for The Batman with Robert Pattinson. Who's excited for The Batman? It's impossible to get excited for anything when we can't even get the movies that are supposed to come out. Release them on streaming services. Release them staggeredly in cinemas where they are available. Do something. It's getting frustratingly frustrating. And I think you're kidding yourselves, studios, if you think that you can wait for a worldwide release and it's going to happen sometime soon, because it's just not. And come on, it's better to make a little money than no money. I don't know, but something's got to be done because it's getting ridiculous. Okay, we're moving on with that. We're going to put that aside. Very disappointing. I'm sorry to have whinged. A lot of I said just that is me just being a big old sook, but I do think there are elements of truth in what I've said. I'm sure people believe me. I want people to agree with me in that logical sense and not agree just because they want their movie to come out and they don't care if people die or not. There are ways to do it. If you can't release it in a movie theater because you're scared about public safety, find other ways. That's all I'm saying. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about Daniel Craig, the last James Bond, and today's spotlight for Daniel Craig. After much deliberation, I decided to focus on Skyfall. It was a huge toss-up between Casino Royale and Skyfall. I wasn't sure which one to pick because I like both tremendously. But it has been pointed out to me that Skyfall is a top-notch Bond film. And I think for all the lovers of Daniel Craig and all the haters of Daniel Craig, Skyfall established that there was a happy middle ground between those fans. And I'll explain that going forward. Skyfall is Daniel Craig's third James Bond outing. And what happens is James Bond is on a mission, and after a close call with death, he nearly dies. He discovers that there is this mysterious villain, this man called Silver, that is out there targeting him and also specifically his boss, Judi Dench's M. Silver is mysteriously connected to all these different people, including Bond's past, M's past. He's got this organization that's somehow sprung out of nowhere. No one knows exactly how he's got the resources and the will to do what he's doing. And he's also obsessed with this some sort of revenge. We don't know exactly what happened to him, but he will stop at nothing to destroy Bond's world. Not him as a person, but his world, and also M's world as well. And what follows is a usual Bond adventure across all the planet as they go from country to country. Bond is essentially chasing a phantom in the beginning. He doesn't know exactly what he's supposed to be stopping, especially because he doesn't want to anymore. He's tried to step away from MI6. He doesn't want to be an agent anymore. He wants to not retire, but just take a breath, take a breather. And M keeps pulling him back in, people from MI6 pull him back in, and he's pulled back into a world which has changed for him. The people he meets, the gadgets available to him, the bureaucracy, the politics, it's all stuff that's unfamiliar for him, and he doesn't know how to interact with it. But he's still the only one with a set of skills that can stop this mysterious Silver. And then when he finds out what the ultimate goal of Silver is and what he plans to do, it's a game of catch-up, because Silver always stays one step ahead of him. And what follows is a very brutal, claustrophobic, intense final battle on Bond's home ground, essentially, for the ultimate goal of stopping Silver from his revenge plot. Now, for the most part, Skyfall is a very successful Bond film. It is probably the highest grossing worldwide Bond film, I think. I haven't checked recently, but last I checked, Skyfall was up there at the top. For people who have never seen a James Bond movie, Skyfall is somehow perfect, because you can watch just a fantastic action movie and still understand everything that's going on. However, for avid aficionado James Bond fans, whether you're just fans of the Daniel Craig era, or if you're a fan of James Bond as a whole, all the way back to 1962, it has a ton of Easter eggs, it's a ton of references to things gone by. It is faithful to the adaptions of all the different characters and adds to a satisfying extension of Bond's legacy and his future as a whole. So it's the holy grail, essentially, of James Bond and brand new film. Anybody can appreciate this film, which is great. Now, let's begin with Daniel Craig. Daniel Craig is, in many ways, the reason why I'm watching James Bond films. When I first saw Casino Royale back in 2006, I didn't even know it was a James Bond film when I got invited to go see it. I just got told, let's go see a movie called Casino Royale, and I did. And it was an opening shot. Daniel Craig was doing some stuff. It was clear he was an agent of some sort, but then he turned and shot the camera, and it was the iconic gun barrel shot from James Bond, and the music started, and very clearly the James Bond big musical intro that you always get in front of a movie began, and I went, oh man, this is a James Bond film. I had no idea, because it did not feel like a James Bond film. Now, as I've said in the past, I caught a lot of Sean Connery and Roger Moore films sortively when I was at my father's house, because they used to be the Bond films that were on when I was there. So I was used to cheesiness, cartoony, over-the-top, super grand plan schemes with crazy invisible cars, over-the-top gadgets, and all that stuff. Daniel Craig's Bond era has updated it and modernized it for the modern era, essentially. It is very believable. You can look at a James Bond film that Daniel Craig is in and absolutely believe that this could happen in real life, that these are real-life villains that could exist in our lifetime, with very real plans for maybe world domination, but more importantly, just trying to get ahead in terms of money, or just general terrorism to tank the stock market, change oil prices, personal assassin vendettas against specific people. Not your usual, I'm going to use the moon to blow up the earth, or I'm going to use the sun to blow up the earth. Now, it has its likers and its haters in that point. For all the huge James Bond fans that have liked it since 1962, who've liked Bond for those specific sort of over-the-top grand gesture stuff, the new Daniel Craig movies do not tend to always resonate with them, because it's so serious. It's lost a lot of its humor that was also quite famous for the Bond era. This is a James Bond that does not swarmily walk into a room and demand his martini shaken, not stirred. He doesn't care. He'll drink a beer if it's just sitting there open for him. He's not about to use women to his advantage or discard them in that sense. He's not out just to have sex with everything that moves. He cannot get out of a situation without being hurt. If you prick him, he bleeds. If he gets shot, he goes down for the count and needs to take some time to recover. If he is smacked in the head, he's knocked out. So this is a Bond that is a human being, not a god who can stand on top of a plane and have a fist fight with a henchman without any sort of support to the plane. In many ways, that's why I like Daniel Craig, because it is something that doesn't take me out of the movie when he's doing something over the top. Sometimes I think he's a bit too serious and a bit gruff. I do miss the comedy that we got with previous Bonds. As I said, Timothy Dalton started the trend and Pierce Brosnan's found somewhere in the middle, I believe, for a real Bond who can make his little jokes but also not be a jerk. And Daniel Craig's got it, but he's still a little bit jerky. More that he just doesn't have patience for people. He seems like he doesn't really care. He does care, but if people are killed, it does not seem like he cared at all if they lived or died, just as long as he can move on to his ultimate goal. But as you watch the movies, you tend to realize that there is a heart in there and he does have connections for people. Specifically for Daniel Craig, where he falls for a woman in his movies, he falls for them. He doesn't just go, oh, cool, time for a little action on the side. He is in head over heels, very much like George Lazenby's Tracy in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Skyfall takes that seriousness, but also at the point there, it manages to go, okay, but also this is the Bond world. Let's bring in the characters that are famous from Bond's past, but also update them in a modern sense, which works really well. Ben Whishaw's Q, he's a young, not a nerd or a geek, but just a young guy with glasses who builds the gadgets for Bond. Gadgets really are not a part of James Bond until they get to Skyfall. When I say not a part of James Bond, I mean Daniel Craig's. Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace, very little gadgets, if any. Q's brought in for Skyfall. The gadgets he provides Daniel Craig are logistical. They make sense. And they're not over-the-top sort of stuff. And he is a believable as a tech guy who probably went to MIT and went, what do I want to do? I will work for a Secret Service agency and provide tools that can be used in spy missions. We also have Miss Moneypenny, played by Naomi Harris, but it's not Miss Moneypenny anymore. It's Eve Moneypenny, and she's not just a secretary that just pines after Bond every time they meet. She is her own agent. She's field work, she's got her gunplay, she can get in a fight and get out and do what needs to be done to complete the mission. This is not someone who just exists purely to go, oh, it's James, oh, I love him so. Not at all. Judi Dench's M. Now, Judi Dench had already been established in the Pierce Brosnan eras as the no-nonsense M to replace the old M that had been the man, essentially. And she made it clear when she started in that she did not care for Bond's attitude, his antics. She was all business, and she was like the ultimate spy, essentially. There was a feeling that she had this past with her own spy adventures that were brutal, violent. You could not tell if she connected with anybody, if she actually liked people, if she used them towards her own ends. For this one, Skyfall, they show that Judi Dench's actions have consequences. Things she's done in the past come back to haunt her in the present. The way she treats Bond. Apparently, she's treated people like that in the past. But whereas Bond relatively takes it okay, other people swear terrible vendettas against her. And when I say other people, I mean Javier Bardem as our villain of Skyfall, Raul Silva. Raul Silva might be one of, if not the best James Bond film of all time. On paper, it's simple. He's just been wronged in the past, so now he wants revenge against the people that he once trusted. But there's some sort of twisted sense of love for a mother figure in his opinion of M, Judi Dench's M, and his need to get revenge on her and against the people who he thinks have either abandoned him or, in Bond's case, replaced him. In many ways, it seems like he thinks he's trying to save Bond from becoming what Silva becomes, which is this creepy, obsessed, loser person who has no identity, has no soul. He is just a weapon that was made for missions, and without that direction, without that need, without that purpose, he is aimless, he's driftless, he doesn't know how to connect with people, he doesn't know how to live a normal life. And he's been through the ringer as well. He's been hurt. As I said before, this Bond, if you prick him, he bleeds. Well, Silva has been pricked so many times, he's about to fall apart. He does some terrible stuff in this film, but in some cases, you find yourself feeling for the guy. You wonder, what this guy's been through, and maybe if things had gone a bit better, he could be the James Bond that we know and love. But instead, he's just become this shell of a human who's just desperate to maybe leave a legacy behind, maybe get people to remember who he was, or maybe he's got this twisted sense that people like him should not exist on this earth, which is part of his deadline focus to get back at Judi Dench and Daniel Craig's Bond. Skyfall is great, fantastic action movie with lots of twists and turns and great characters. Daniel Craig's Bond, as I said, serious, violent, but from Skyfall onwards, you can see sort of that the ultimate goal here with the Bond film seems to be pushing back towards the classic Bond that you either know and love or you know and remember. By the end of Skyfall, you can see a lot of what was in the Connery era and the Moore era starting to take shape. Whether that was a good move or not, unsure at this point. We've only had one movie after that and a second movie that just at this point seems like will never be released. That said, Daniel Craig's Bond now has an established group of characters around him, M, Q, Miss Moneypenny, and it seems like where he started at Casino Royale with no love for anyone, no connections, it's just the mission and nothing else, he seems to have some sort of support system that he can rely on, which makes for a satisfactory arc for his character. One day we'll get a conclusion for it. Fun fact as well, this was the 50th anniversary James Bond, so there was a lot of references to Bond episodes of the past, references, Bond history, and even a lovely little cameo by Albert Finney. Now, rumors were that this should have been Sean Connery. Sean Connery has retired from acting and stood by his ground to not be in the film. So it is still great. Albert Finney does a great job in his cameo. I won't say who he is. You'll have to watch the film if you've not seen it. But suffice it to say, you can see that he should have been Sean Connery. And that does take you out of it a little bit, but only a little bit. Otherwise, Skyfall is a perfect 10 out of 10 film. For other Daniel Craig movies, I can recommend at least 75% of them. As I said, Casino Royale, Daniel Craig's first James Bond film, is a very, very great film. Again, I didn't know it was a Bond film originally, and you do not have to be aware of Bond to appreciate the action and excitement and the tension of a big poker game that Bond is involved in, where he meets the mysterious Vesper Lynd, played by Ava Green, which has a huge impact on him in future Bond films. It was followed by Quantum of Solace. I'm not a huge fan of Quantum of Solace, but to be fair, it was the first Bond film that attempted to be a direct sequel to what was before. And whereas Casino Royale was a solid story, Quantum of Solace always felt like it was lacking that drive for what made the movie so good. But still an okay action movie, all things considered. And most recently, Spectre. I was very excited for Spectre, and I do really enjoy Spectre. I think Spectre, though, got a little too big for its head. There's a lot of moving parts going on here that it does feel like it collapses in on itself. That said, Christoph Waltz is in there as a villain, and Christoph Waltz is always great in everything he's in, and his villain for Spectre is an absolute delight to watch. Maybe one day I'll be able to review No Time to Die for you and complete the Daniel Craig analysis, but suffice it to say, he's up there. He's in my top 3 Bond actors alongside Pierce Brosnan and George Lazenby. And I think if you want to watch James Bond movies, but you are aware of the type of person he is and the type of attitude he presents and the treatment of women and all that and all the old Bond films, which is perfectly understandable, Daniel Craig avoids that. You will not feel uncomfortable watching his films. You will not feel like it has aged poorly. As I said, it is a modern take on Bond with modern stories, real life situations, with references and hints to the old Bond life without smacking you in the face with them. So if you're looking for a place to get in, Daniel Craig would probably be the perfect place. All right, we wrap up our Bond countdown, which essentially went to nowhere. How would I rank these films? That's a good question. Maybe to cap it, instead of my No Time to Die review, I will do the top 10 James Bond films, I think. Because as I've done a spotlight on these films, I have not really talked about them particularly much. It's mainly been the performances of the actor as a whole. Daniel Craig, Pierce Brosnan, Sean Connery. Which films are the best? Which ones are the worst? I don't know. But perhaps we'll do that. We'll do a countdown to see. We'll just have to see how I feel in a couple weeks' time when I remember that I made this promise and decide if I'm going to stick to it. But in any case, I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you got a lot out of it. I appreciate everybody who's listened to every single episode. I hope all you Bond fans out there aren't too disappointed about No Time to Die. We just got to hang in there, hopefully for only another 5 more months. But again, no promises. Tune in next week for another brand new episode. But until then, stay safe out there. I love and appreciate you as always. You've been spliced in later. Adios, muchachos. I'll catch you next time.